Ryan and Emily seemed like the perfect TikTok couple, loved by fans and admired online. But behind closed doors, a deadly secret was waiting to be uncovered. One shocking night in their California apartment changed everything forever. Ryan had always been a rising star on TikTok, his videos filled with infectious energy, humor, and a charm that drew thousands of followers every day. His life appeared flawless on screen: expensive sneakers, designer clothes, luxury cars, and his stunning wife, Emily, who often appeared in his content. Emily had a gentle smile and a quiet presence that balanced Ryan's flashy personality, and together they were the kind of couple that fans envied, sharing snippets of laughter, travel, and what seemed like a perfect life. Behind the filters and carefully curated clips, however, the reality was far more complicated. While Ryan was focused on growing his online fame, Emily often felt invisible, her own passions and struggles buried beneath the constant glare of social media. She had dreams of her own, but they were frequently overshadowed by Ryan's meteoric rise. Friends noticed subtle changes. Emily's laughter sometimes seemed forced, her smiles hesitant, and she often lingered quietly in the background while Ryan captured every moment on camera. Despite the outward glamour, Emily sometimes left the apartment with an uneasy feeling, sensing tensions beneath the surface. Their apartment in Los Angeles was modern and lavish, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. It was a perfect backdrop for Instagram and TikTok posts, but within its walls, arguments and unspoken frustrations simmered. Neighbors described Emily as polite and reserved, rarely socializing, while Ryan remained the life of every online party. The couple's public image painted a picture of happiness and success, masking a growing divide between them. Fans online adored Ryan and Emily's seemingly perfect relationship, sharing comments about couple goals and ideal love. Yet no one could see the cracks forming behind the camera, the quiet fears Emily carried, and the shadows lurking in the apartment that would soon become the stage for a tragedy that would shock the city and the world. The morning began like any other in the bustling Los Angeles neighborhood, but for those who lived nearby, something felt off. Emily hadn't been seen leaving the apartment for several days, and the faint hum of city life couldn't mask the uneasy quiet inside her home. Neighbors, used to seeing her running errands or walking her dog, started noticing the absence. Small details, like the stack of unopened mail at the door and the lingering scent of coffee on the counter, suggested that something wasn't right. Ryan claimed on social media that Emily was busy with a personal project, a vague explanation that drew sympathy from fans. But behind closed doors, a tension lingered that was invisible to the online world. Friends who tried calling her noticed that she wasn't answering, and texts went unanswered for hours, even days. Those closest to her felt a gnawing worry, a feeling that something more serious was at play. Strange noises had been reported by neighbors late at night. Muffled voices, the sound of objects being moved, and sometimes, abrupt silences that lasted long enough to unsettle anyone hearing them. People dismissed it as ordinary apartment sounds, but when combined with Emily's sudden disappearance from her usual routine, it painted a troubling picture. The building's security guard mentioned seeing Ryan come and go at odd hours, sometimes leaving the apartment with a forced calm that didn't match the storm of whispers surrounding them. As tension grew, speculation began circulating online. Fans noticed the lack of Emily in recent posts, the eerie quiet replacing the familiar laughter and smiling selfies. Rumors swirled like wildfire, feeding a sense of dread. By the end of the week, the uneasy feeling in the neighborhood had reached a tipping point. What started as subtle signs, a closed door, missed calls, strange noises, would soon escalate into a shocking revelation that no one could ignore, a revelation that would shake not just the neighborhood but. The day Emily's body was discovered began like any other in the city, yet it quickly became the day that would shock everyone connected to her life. A maintenance worker had been called to the apartment after repeated requests from neighbors went unanswered. At first, he assumed it was a simple issue, a broken lock, a faulty faucet. But the moment he stepped inside, the air felt heavy, almost suffocating. The apartment, usually vibrant with laughter and life, was eerily silent. Emily's body was found in the living room, lying on the floor in an unnatural position. The scene suggested a struggle had taken place. Furniture was overturned, and personal items were scattered across the room. Her phone lay cracked on the carpet, a lifeline that had gone unanswered for days. Panic surged through the maintenance worker, who immediately called the authorities. Within minutes, the building was swarmed with police, and the quiet suburban street transformed into a scene of chaos and speculation. News of the discovery spread almost instantly across social media. Fans who had idolized Emily and Ryan were stunned, struggling to reconcile the image they had of her happy life with the grim reality of her death. The comments were filled with disbelief, condolences, and countless questions about what could have led to such a tragedy. News outlets picked up the story, labeling it a shocking case in a city already known for high-profile incidents. Investigators quickly began their work, taking photos, collecting fingerprints, and scouring the apartment for any clue that could explain what happened. Initial observations suggested foul play, but the motive remained unclear. Friends and family were interviewed, trying to piece together the last time anyone saw her alive. As the world watched, the story of Emily's death grew darker and more complex, hinting at secrets, betrayals, and hidden dangers behind the glamorous life that had once been shared online. The discovery wasn't just shock. The police quickly took control of the apartment, cordoning off the scene as detectives began their painstaking investigation. Every corner was scrutinized, every surface dusted for fingerprints, and every item cataloged for evidence. Ryan, still in shock, insisted he had been out of town for work, unaware of the horrors that had unfolded while he was away. His alibi seemed convenient, but investigators were cautious, knowing appearances could be deceiving. Inside the apartment, chaos painted a troubling picture. Drawers were left open, clothing scattered across the floor, and the faint smell of cleaning products suggested someone had tried to erase traces of their presence. Emily's phone, cracked and lifeless, held a hidden story of messages, missed calls, and warnings that could explain her final days. Investigators noted that someone had been meticulous in leaving clues, yet careful enough to avoid obvious detection, a puzzle that would take weeks to unravel. Neighbors were questioned, recounting small, seemingly insignificant details that, when pieced together, painted a chilling portrait of Emily's last moments. The once friendly and quiet street now buzzed with speculation and fear. Rumors began to swirl. Had she known her attacker, or was this a random act of violence? Fans online tried to connect the dots, analyzing Ryan's videos and posts for signs, while authorities reminded the public that the case was far from solved. The detectives noticed inconsistencies in Ryan's story, timing gaps, forgotten details, and vague explanations. While there was no direct evidence against him, the cracks in his account could not be ignored. Every lead seemed to raise more questions than answers, and the investigators began to suspect that the truth might be more complicated than anyone could imagine. As the first week of investigation ended, one thing became clear: Emily's death was not a simple tragedy. Behind the luxurious facade of their lives lurked secrets and lies. As investigators sifted through Emily's belongings, a hidden side of her life began to emerge, one that no one had suspected. Her phone, once just a device for messages and social media, revealed a series of encrypted chats, mysterious calls, and repeated warnings from someone whose identity was unknown. Emily had been reaching out for help, leaving subtle clues of her growing fear and unease. Her journal, tucked away in a drawer, detailed feelings of isolation and unease. She wrote about moments when she felt watched, when someone seemed to be monitoring her every move, even in what should have been the safety of her own home. Friends and acquaintances who had believed in her seemingly perfect life were shocked to learn about her hidden struggles. The cheerful woman they had known had been quietly living under a cloud of tension, desperately trying to navigate a dangerous situation that had escalated beyond her control. Text messages revealed an individual pressuring Emily, someone who knew details about her personal and professional life that no outsider should have known. Threats, subtle at first, grew more direct over time, hinting at consequences if she didn't comply. The detectives realized that Emily had been trapped in a silent battle, one fought through whispered warnings, encrypted conversations, and carefully hidden notes. The clues painted a picture of a woman terrified for her safety, yet determined to uncover the truth behind the threat she faced. Social media analysis showed a pattern of manipulated interactions. Emily had been careful to hide her fear from the public, presenting only the happy, smiling persona her followers expected. The investigation now took a darker turn. This was no longer just about her death. It was about the dangerous secrets she had uncovered, the hidden enemies she had angered, and the chilling lengths someone had gone to ensure she could no longer speak. Emily's life, once admired online, now revealed the first real glimpse. As the investigation progressed, suspicion began to shift toward Ryan. Detectives scrutinized his movements, statements, and online activity, searching for any inconsistencies that could explain Emily's death. On the surface, he appeared devastated, grieving the loss of his wife in front of cameras and followers. But behind closed doors, small details started to raise questions. His stories about the hours leading up to her death were vague, and he seemed to forget key moments that could have helped the investigation. Forensic analysis revealed that Ryan had been monitoring Emily's phone and social media accounts more closely than he initially admitted. While some of it could be explained by jealousy or curiosity, the intensity of his surveillance suggested a controlling side that the public had never seen. Friends who spoke to authorities described him as obsessive at times, frequently checking her messages and planning her daily schedule. Although no direct evidence linked him to the crime, detectives couldn't ignore the growing pattern of controlling behavior. Meanwhile, online speculation reached a fever pitch. Fans combed through old videos and posts, analyzing gestures, facial expressions, and subtle interactions between the couple. Social media became a breeding ground for theories, with some accusing Ryan of foul play and others defending him as a grieving husband. The pressure mounted on investigators, who had to sift fact from assumption while keeping the public's fascination at bay. As interviews continued, detectives noticed that Ryan's grief often seemed rehearsed, his tears convenient in timing yet inconsistent with his statements. Small contradictions, a missed detail about a delivery, an unexplained absence, began to paint a picture that couldn't be ignored. Every piece of evidence added tension, leaving authorities to wonder. Had they been looking at the wrong suspect all along, or was the charming TikToker hiding something far more sinister than any? Just as the investigation seemed to be zeroing in on Ryan, a breakthrough turned the entire case upside down. A neighbor came forward with security footage from the night of Emily's death. At first glance, it seemed unremarkable, just the usual blur of headlights and passing pedestrians. But as detectives reviewed it frame by frame, a shocking detail emerged. A masked figure had entered the apartment building around the time Emily died, moving deliberately toward her unit. The discovery sent waves of disbelief through the investigation team. Everything they had assumed about Ryan's potential involvement now had to be reconsidered. The intruder had left no obvious trace, no fingerprints on the doorknob, no forced entry that could be easily traced. It was clear they had planned their move meticulously, aware of building schedules, security routines, and Emily's own habits. The crime was no spontaneous act. It was premeditated, executed with chilling precision. Forensics confirmed the presence of the intruder inside the apartment. DNA traces on a window latch and a torn piece of clothing found near the scene didn't match Ryan, and investigators realized they were dealing with someone who knew Emily personally enough to anticipate her routines. Motives began to emerge from the shadows. Someone with a personal vendetta, someone desperate to protect their secrets, someone who had been hiding in plain sight. The revelation shocked not only the police, but also the public. Fans who had been quick to condemn Ryan were left questioning everything they had believed about the TikToker's life. Social media buzzed with speculation. Who could have done this? Why would anyone target Emily? The masked intruder's existence reshaped the investigation entirely. The case was no longer about a controlling husband or domestic tension. It was about a hidden enemy, someone lurking in the background, orchestrating events from the shadows. Suddenly, Emily's death became even more mysterious. As detectives dug deeper, the true motives behind Emily's murder slowly began to surface, revealing a web of deception and betrayal. Evidence showed that the masked intruder was no stranger to Emily. In fact, they had once been a trusted friend, someone she had confided in about her personal and professional life. But that trust had been shattered. Financial troubles, jealousy, and desperation had pushed the intruder to a breaking point, creating a dangerous mix of obsession and rage. Investigators discovered that Emily had stumbled upon something the intruder desperately wanted to hide. Emails, bank records, and messages suggested illegal activities, small at first, almost insignificant, but enough that exposure could ruin a life and career. Emily, determined and fearless, had begun collecting evidence. She had even hinted in private messages that she feared for her safety, that someone close to her was manipulating events behind the scenes. The intruder, realizing that Emily could not be silenced by threats alone, decided to take extreme measures to protect themselves. The detectives pieced together a chilling timeline. The intruder had carefully observed Emily's routines for weeks, learning her habits and predicting when she would be alone. On the night of the murder, every move had been planned. Entry, execution, and exit, leaving just enough clues for authorities to chase, but never enough to be immediately incriminating. The level of calculation stunned investigators. Ryan, meanwhile, remained devastated but innocent. His controlling tendencies had made him a suspect, but the truth now pointed elsewhere. The public was shocked to learn that the danger had come not from within Emily's household, but from someone she had once trusted implicitly. Emily's death was no longer a random tragedy. It was the result of greed, obsession, and a desperate attempt to bury a secret. The investigation revealed a dark reality. Sometimes the people closest to us can harbor the D. After weeks of tireless investigation, the police finally closed in on the intruder. Surveillance footage, combined with forensic evidence collected from the apartment, led detectives to a small, nondescript apartment several miles away. The suspect, a former friend of Emily's named Vanessa, had managed to stay under the radar for weeks, blending into the city's vast population. When authorities executed the arrest, she appeared calm, almost eerily composed, as if expecting them. The interrogation revealed a chilling story. Vanessa had been struggling financially for years, hiding mounting debts and failed ventures from everyone around her. When Emily had accidentally discovered evidence of Vanessa's illegal dealings, embezzlement, fraud, and manipulation, Vanessa panicked. Fear of exposure turned into obsession. She had planned Emily's murder with meticulous precision, ensuring no one would suspect her and covering her tracks as carefully as a professional criminal. The investigation confirmed that every move that night had been premeditated, from the entry point to the way Emily's belongings were disturbed to make the scene seem chaotic. The revelation shocked the public. Fans who had previously condemned Ryan were forced to confront the truth. The charming TikToker had been a grieving husband, not a guilty party. Social media erupted with discussions, disbelief, and speculation. News outlets detailed the evidence against Vanessa, highlighting the betrayal and greed that had led to Emily's death. For detectives, the arrest was only the beginning. Vanessa's motive and careful planning exposed a level of danger that few had anticipated. The layers of deceit and betrayal showed how someone Emily had once trusted could turn into her deadliest enemy. Though justice seemed near, the impact of the crime lingered. Emily's life had been stolen, and her absence left a permanent void in the lives of those who loved her. The arrest provided answers, but could not erase the sea. In the aftermath of Emily's death, Ryan faced a world that had been both captivated and judgmental. The initial wave of suspicion and social media scrutiny had faded, replaced by sympathy, grief, and a lingering sense of disbelief. He returned to the apartment one last time, walking through the rooms that had once been filled with laughter and light. Every corner held memories of Emily, her favorite chair by the window, the photos on the wall, the little notes she had left behind. The apartment, now empty and silent, was a stark reminder of the life that had been stolen. Ryan struggled to process the tragedy. Friends and family supported him, but no one could truly understand the weight of losing someone so unexpectedly. He decided to take a step back from social media, wanting to escape the constant commentary and comparisons that had once defined his online existence. The platforms that had elevated him now felt hollow, a stark contrast to the raw grief he was experiencing. Determined to honor Emily's memory, Ryan began sharing her story carefully, focusing not on sensationalism but on awareness. He spoke about the hidden dangers that can lurk behind seemingly perfect lives, the importance of trusting instincts, and the quiet signs of manipulation and danger that are easy to overlook. His message resonated with many. transforming his grief into a warning for others. As weeks turned into months, the neighborhood slowly returned to normal, though Emily's absence remained palpable. Ryan worked to rebuild his life, creating a balance between moving forward and keeping her memory alive. Her story became a cautionary tale, reminding the world that behind every glamorous facade can lie unseen struggles and dangers. Though justice had been served with Vanessa's arrest, the tragedy left an indelible mark. The apartment remained vacant, a silent monument to a life lost too soon, and a warning that appearances can be deceiving. Ryan's journey of healing continued, a testam.